Hello, Jill. Hello, Andrea. What's up, everybody? Today we're going to interview Justin Rupel. This was kind of a last minute thing. It's cool. I'm going to go check on Justin, make sure he can get in here. Let's see here. Hi, Dancing. I just sent Justin another invite link. He's having issues with the other one. How's everyone doing? Actor, comedian, impressionist Justin Rupel coming up here in just a second. He's trying to get into the live with the link I sent him. It is windy and nasty for sure. Been without power all day here. Just got my power back on about 30 minutes ago. No, I do not. I don't keep toe clippings. No, that's not a thing. I'm going to send him another link. Third link. See if this one will get him in here. Jill going to be busy today? Where are you at, Justin? There he is. There he is. There he is.
Thanks, my friend, so much. I am so sorry.
That's
I had to,
okay.
I had to update the YouTube app and
Oh, wow.
yeah, all that stuff. Bro, this is surreal. Can I just say to your audience, this man starts and ends my days. I depend on you for so much. I mean, literally, I I started in comedy and television to do essentially what you do for me, which is to be like, look, I'm going to put everything through my processor and spit it back out in a much easier language for you to digest.
Right.
And that has always been my job as the firstborn in the family to be like, okay, here's mom and dad yelling. Here's, and to have you go, no, no, let's walk through this. And that kind of stuff. I mean, like, I always say the measure of a good creator is somebody who has a lot of shares. And bro, you're my entire share list. It's just sending it to people who are like, well, I've got a lot of I'm gonna put you on to Mr. Global.
Well, thank you so much for that.
My pleasure, bro.
So I remember the first time I saw you on TikTok, and you'll have to. I've had power out at my house, and I got
No
this
problem.
alarm going off in the back that I can't get to
I
stop.
can't hear it. Don't worry.
The first time I saw you on TikTok, you were standing in front of a mic, and it looked like you were in a small room, and you were doing a series of impressions just back to back to back. It was like
Right.
a rapid fire 20
Yeah.
impression thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy shit, this guy's good. And I went to your page, and you didn't
Yeah.
have any followers.
No.
Like, I think you had just gotten on TikTok, right?
Yeah.
And my first impression was, holy shit, how does this guy, because I didn't know who you were at the time, right?
Yeah.
I was like, how does he not have any followers? And I dawned on me later, like, he just got here. That's why he has followers.
Brother.
But you've built up quite a good following on TikTok in a fairly recent amount of time. Last time I looked, you were well over 500,000 followers.
Yeah. I
Um,
honestly, I think we both came to it the same way, which was, we like to talk. And when I came to a point in time where the pandemic hit, and I had set up 2020 was supposed to be my year, man. Like, I know that sounds like every high school quarterback, right? It's gonna be, they put me in, man. But 2020, like, that was off the back of my first big movie role, and I
yeah.
was like, okay, so I've got credits for the first time. I'm gonna go out on the road, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks. Like, they made everything illegal. I wasn't mad at the world. I was just like, of course this happened. Of
Of
course,
course.
of
Yeah.
course, it's gonna be like this. Like, I tried out for SNL the year that Pete Davidson tried out, and when I saw that kid go up on stage, I was sitting in the green room, and I had just performed 17 impressions back to back to back to back to back to back to back, and I'm like, all right. And I go up there, and this kid just, he was just himself, and he's like, and then if I'm like, and I watched him do it, and like, those moments in a movie where someone's like full of confidence and like, yeah, and then it goes,
Right.
like, that's what they wanted. I knew it right away. I was like, I just went up and tap danced like Jimmy Fallon, and that's not what they want right now. They need someone like him. And I was like, oh, that's it. So to talk to that point, it's like when I went on to TikTok, it was because I was like, well, there's nowhere else to go. There is nowhere else to go. So I was like, I'm just going to start posting everything comedy related in case we never get to do this shit again.
Right. Right.
And necessity breeds invention. Like, it started out like, damn, I thought this was going to be, just something I put my stuff into, and now, because of that, those connections have broken my career wide open. And oh, look at how much Mohai loves us. I think it's I think it's a nice point in social culture where the apps like this have an algorithm that dumps people into our feed that we would have never seen.
Yeah, absolutely.
And because of that, there was a little bit of the meritocracy bump that I got. Like, okay, the real reason I'm getting noticed now is because it just tosses it out to 200 people, and if they like it, they like it. And for more people to do that, like, just honestly put your stuff out there, you'll find your audience, you know?
Yeah. So when I didn't get, as you know, I didn't get to prepare for this interview because we literally decided this in the last 7 minutes. Which
Yeah, I'm
honestly,
sorry.
I love doing it this way. I love the chaos and everything. I
Good.
would rather do it this way than prepare. Like I spent hours preparing questions for the news girl. I
Well,
To me this is more exciting because it gets my blood pumping. But I did
here's
do
what's
research on you before.
okay. Okay.
To me, you are kind of you remind me of that sort of classic story of this like struggling comedian actor that's been doing this for many years, right?
Hmm.
That's who you are.
Hmm.
You've had points where you've had highlights in your career, but like you've been doing this a really long time, which kind of surprised me because honestly you look like a pretty young man. I
Thank you.
didn't I didn't realize you'd been in it this long, but
Yeah,
you were
18 years now.
18
And,
years.
and to, it's interesting that you should say that too, because I was just, one of my favorite comics of all time is Bill Burr. And he was one of the first comics I ever got to open for. And yeah, I know, you look
That's
alike.
my
You
Bill
look,
Burr impression. I
so,
just became an impressionist.
it's perfect impression right there. He just takes his head off. He's perfect. Anyway, uh, the first time I ever performed with him was 2008, and my mother loved his performance and on HBO. And I remember meeting him, and he was like 34, and I was like, boy, that's what usually you see comics break in their 20s or something like that. I thought. So I'm back there backstage with him, and I asked him to sign something. He's like, I don't remember that joke that you're asking. Could you do an impression? And I was like, I'm doing the impression for him. He signed it to my mother, and I tried to look at what the thing said. And he goes, don't look at it. That's for her. So I gave it to her on Christmas, and she opened it up, and he said, it may take 20 years, but he'll have his own name on this thing someday. That's what Bill wrote. And when it occurred to me, like, it takes 20 years to do anything.
Yeah.
Anything. If you want to be good at something, it's going to take you a long time. And some people are good and they get noticed earlier. That's fine, but it also means that you have to be ready earlier.
Yeah.
And like, the one thing I'll say about, I used to think when I was younger, I'm like, you got to break in your 20s, and then in your 30s is the time you build up. But now I'm like, holy shit, I didn't know anything in my 20s and 30s. So there was nothing really for me to talk about. I mean, I could make funny stuff happen, but nothing that happened to me was of consequence, you
Yeah.
know? And so, like, the stuff I'm taking in now and the stuff that's happening now feels a lot more authentic to me. I've been through some shit in my life. And now when I talk about stuff on stage, I'm like, okay, it's coming from somewhere.
Yeah.
And um, I go back and think to myself, all right, I'm glad I didn't make it earlier because I like the stuff I'm making now, you know?
Yeah.
And that's something that I try to compare to, because when other people try to associate with comedy, they're like, that life makes no sense, that career makes, and I'm like, it does, because I was in sales. When I got out of college, I went right to sales, and I was like, okay, that's probably what I should do. I got a degree in broadcasting, but while you're waiting for the microphone. And they said, okay, well, it takes about 5 years to build up your contacts, another 5 years to really build up the ethos with them. And then year 10, you'll start to make a good living. And I'm like, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. It takes 15, 20 years to get good at anything. So
Hmm.
just pick the thing that you actually want to be good at and just submit to the 20 years. And I, I didn't think when I got into this that 20 years would go by like that, but it did. Like, 20 years just went by. But the best part is now I get to literally have conversations with the people who I watch and talk to, and it's because I took that chance. And you're gonna suck for a while. I don't. I don't want to watch. I don't want to show you any of the stuff I did prior to me being on TikTok because we don't want that to see the light of day, bro.
So you were in How to Train Your Dragon.
That's right.
What are
That is,
some of your highlights? Who did you work with that really impressed you? And I think you won an award for that. So
I
tell us a
did.
little bit about that.
I got to be part of. I got to be part of the team that won an award. I was part of the Voice Award for Best Ensemble Cast, and that's because the ensemble cast was Gerard Butler, America Ferrara, uh, 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 Jay Baruchel, and all these people, who none of which I got to work with. I
Oh, really?
was. This is a fun story for you. This is. I can break this with you. I was added to the franchise in the third, and for the fourth, and some little projects after, because they had to recast one of the main characters, and I got cast because of TikTok. Literally, um, it was. I had put out a video of me doing an impression of the main character, just his voice, TJ Miller, because
Uh-huh.
I had done a few tour dates with TJ Miller, and my agent got a hold of me while I was on a cruise ship, and they're like, "Hey, um, we need to replace this cast member. Can you come in?" And I said, "I can't. It would violate the Jones Act." I don't know if you know what the Jones Act is. You can't leave an American port, or you can't leave a Canadian port or an American port on a cruise ship and get off in another country and
Right.
stay there. Yeah, so that's what the Jones Act
You
was.
got to
So
come
they're like,
back.
yeah, you have to get back to the original country.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, I can't come in for 2 more weeks because I'm not returning to a Canadian port for 2 more weeks. And they're like, oh, well, we need this. We need this audition now. So the cruise ship director was like, yeah, BC's Port Law. Yep. So the cruise ship director, he's like, I have the first two movies. Let's watch them and let's create a little sound studio in this place. And I did that. So my only work was with the entertainment director on the cruise ship. Because when
Wow.
I went in and there was 12 or 16 pages of dialogue, and I had to that had already been recorded. The most cartoons, if you don't know this about cartoons, most cartoons nowadays, what they do is they record the audio and then they'll animate it into the
Right.
actual animation. So like the voices, the matching of the lips will be done in an animated process with AI and some of that technology. So it'll speed up the time of an animated project. Like it used to be, okay, we'll record them and then we'll draw the pictures to their voice. And so their mouth matches that was a painstaking process.
Wow. Yeah.
So now the guy had already done all the voices, and they said, all right, you're going to come back in. There's 16 pages of dialogue. You're going to come back in and match it to his exact voice, and then we'll wrap it your lips of your character around your interpretation of it. So because I was so pumped, bro, that I went in. They're like, okay, we have 5 days to do this. I did it in 2 hours. Which
Wow.
which this is little note. In government work and in contract work, if they allot you 5 days, take it
Right. Yeah.
because they paid me by day.
Yes.
So stupid me. Um, yeah, and that's you get. It, I thought. Do you remember the movie Mrs. Doubtfire? Did you ever
Hmm.
see that?
Yeah.
Remember that scene where he's doing the voice for the bird? Off him up, that's what
Yeah.
it's like. It's you in a studio with 5 people behind glass, and you're just in there by yourself. And then they're like, "Could you do this line here?" And you're like, "Uh huh." And then you go. There's a beep, 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 and you do it, and you're by yourself for the most part.
So how
So
long did it take you to sort of nail that voice? And is that vastly different across a lot of characters. I'm sure some are much harder than others. What's
You're
the
exactly
average?
right.
How long did it take you to figure that? Because you did an impression of me once. Like I
Mhm.
literally left a response on TikTok or something. Hey, you got to do an impression of me. And like 20 minutes later, there's a fucking video of you doing an impression of me.
Well, you're the first person to ask it like this. So I'll tell you and your wonderful audience that most of my impressions come from love. If I love somebody's stuff, if it makes me laugh, if you make me laugh, I'm immediately adopting your voice. Like
Right.
immediately. If if somebody makes me laugh in the second, then I'll almost say it right back to them in their voice because that's the mimicry that I like to do. So to answer your question, in this case, TJ Miller's case, I had found him very funny. So I had done some gigs with him. And when I try to like tell somebody someone's joke, if I'm trying to like relay a joke, I always do it in their voice.
Right.
So he would say, like, he was like, so are some of you, you gonna go home and do a little of this? You do some of this? I don't do that. I do this. I, I run, I lightly lay it around the outside. Sometimes I do this, which takes two penises. And he's just like, and it was making me laugh so hard that I was doing it in the green room to his friends, right? And so when he came backstage, he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I could just do it." The more exaggerated and the more crazy a voice gets, the easier it is for me to do
Right.
because then I can. There's always there's a physicality to it. So TJ in specific is always up like this. He kind of has like this so it puts a strain on his throat. But if it's something like Jeff Goldblum, and I watch a whole bunch of Jeff Goldblum movies, and I notice, all right, well, he has a very distinct pattern. The more distinct your pattern gets, the more easy it is to impersonate, which is why like Schwarzenegger and Walken, they're always the most uh, impersonated one because it's so weird.
Yes.
And the weirder your voice gets, the easier it is to impersonate. So like, and I have a default voice. I call it a default. Like it's like a baritone.
Mm-hmm.
So it basically just means anybody who's kind of in like this range, I can get it, you know? And the getting it is first I get the physical thing, then I figure out where you're from. If I can figure out where your accent's from, I add that accent. And then the third thing is what I call your outwords, the words that you use when you are just in between sentences. So for that would be for Jason Statham, it'd be, "Do you know what I mean?" "Know what I mean? Know what I mean? Know what I mean?
Yeah.
Know what I mean?" Right? Or Goldblum, it'd be, yes, yes, right? So those little words that only that person says, and then you got it. Like you kind
Right.
of, but also the crazier thing, if you do voice matching, yeah. Here, Arnold. Here's a good example. Arnold, there's what I call an impression, which is like, hey, I'm making a funny character, I'm getting close to the sound, and then there's a voice match. And voice matching has to trick the audience into believing that that was really them. So an Arnold impression would be like, "What are you doing? Get out there, get down." Right? There's a funny sound to it. But if I'm actually trying to sound like him, it would be more like, "Honestly, it's been great to be here. Today, we're going to talk about how we can be better to the environment and also better to each other. If you think about it, it's not about what we can do for other people. First, we have to do something for ourselves, right? And if we
Right.
don't do that, then it doesn't matter what we project out there. So he's like, there's two versions of your voice. There's the
Right.
character version that we all put out there, and then there's the what you really sound like.
Yeah. Just normal speak.
And it's funny because I think there's two worlds of entertainers like that. There's the ones who Dana Carvey, impersonator, right? It's character.
Yeah.
1,000 points of light doesn't really sound like George H.W., but it's funny.
Right.
And then there's the ones who are it's so spot on that you're like, ugh, that's actually kind of creepy.
Who's your favorite? Who's your favorite? So if I could, so I have no gift to impersonate anybody. I've tried. Like I don't know. It's
I
got to be a
bet
natural gift.
I
But
bet you
if
could, but yeah.
if if I if I could just pick one person to impersonate, just do an amazing impersonation of, it would have to be Christopher Walken because I
Hmm.
guess because I'm a Gen Xer and I
Of
think
course.
Christopher Walken's just the greatest.
Well, watch this. I can
Who's
teach
your
you how to
favorite?
do it. I can teach you how to do it real quick. So I'm going to teach you how to do walking, and
Okay.
then I'll tell you what my favorite impressions are.
I'm going to be talking like this for a week if you teach me
It's
how to do
fine.
this.
So with walking specifically, there's three things you have to do. First, pick a monotone key that you're going to keep everything in, right? So I'm going up and down when I'm talking. There's a lot of musical notes, but pick one key. This is your key. You're only going to talk in this key. So
Okay.
then there you got it. I'm only going to allow my voice to be in this tone. Now, start and end your sentences with weird inflection. Now, I'm only going to start in this tone. Okay. Now you're almost halfway there, right? Now, all you have to do is at the end of your sentence, whisper and then pause in weird sentences, in weird parts. Like, so it would be today I was going to the store. I was there and I thought to myself, I shouldn't be here anymore. Crazy. Something in the air. So it's like you just pick that, you pick a tone, you pick the tone. Babies, I'm Bruce Dickinson. Yes, the Bruce Dickinson. And I gotta say, there it is. One little, it's just barely ever there. And then if you do the whisper, yes, yes. You know, like the older the star gets, the more they do that kind of like they don't in movies specifically. I don't know if we know this. Like most movies, they don't talk very loud. When they give dialogue, it's like that's way down here, right? So like that's why Liam Neeson sounds like that because he's barely even talking. He's like
Right.
he's got to be this close and be like, I don't know who you are, and I don't know where you're going. If it's money you're after, I assure you, I don't have any. That's why it's so quiet. You know, the Continental. Oh, that was great. The Continental. One of your sarcastic sisters. I would you like some fine champagne? I love the impressions that are close enough to my voice that I can slip into it. So walking is what I did for the first half of my career, but then later on, I love Jeff Goldblum. I love Jeff Bridges. For some
Yeah.
reason, those two are very funny to me. Jeff Bridges, far out, man. You know, he has everything goes through his nose, and it's always like he's chewing tobacco or something, man. You know, and I like that. I like the voices that I do that not a lot of people do. You know, and the rare ones that I like to do are the ones that not everybody can hear, meaning like they don't listen to that person enough to get it. But I think I do a pretty good Jason Bateman, and it's like it's just dripping in sarcasm and yeah, is that working out? Okay, sure. Yeah. Hey, sport, do me a favor, put in a little more effort, okay? Because we're not getting that. Not getting the back and forth here, right? A lot of failure, not a lot of success. Okay. Yeah, I just love the if somebody has a definite personality, man, that makes me love doing that impersonation. Like Al Pacino is what makes my mother laugh constantly. I
Yeah.
could just call my mom and be like, "Where are you going? What are we doing?" Ah, and it's just he can never get old. I never get old of that. But interestingly enough, I don't do them around the house. I got
Right.
two female partners, and they have shut me out. There is no voices in the house.
So I love characters more than I love the actors. Have
Me
you ever
too.
thought about this?
Yeah.
So, like, I can be watching True Grit, but hearing The Big Lebowski. Does that happen
Right,
to you? I'm like, I heard the Lebowski.
bro. Here's what's so funny about True Grit too, and it's Ryan Reynolds does the same thing. You made such a good point, which is I think there's two types of actors. There are actors who are a different version of themselves. It's just themselves in every role. All right. And I think, no offense to Jeff Bridges is one of those people. You know,
Yeah.
you're like, here's Jeff Bridges in Tron. Uh, where's the fucking bike, man? Uh, we're in a game, man. You know, it's the same character that he is in, right? But then
Yes.
there's someone like Gary Oldman. You know, Gary Oldman in True Romance plays a weird, like dreadlocked, missing eyeballed gangster, and I didn't even know that's him. And then in another movie, he's like, you know, the police commissioner. So he's a character, and when they go and do that, they put the whole character into that different accent, different thing.
Hmm.
I honestly do more impressions of the people who are the same person every time,
Yeah.
because that way, if I'm just doing a character, people will be like, well, that's just them doing that character. But the people like Ryan Reynolds, Deadpool is always Deadpool. He was meant to be Deadpool. He's just
Mhm.
Deadpool. So
Yeah.
doing Ryan Reynolds is him in every movie. Yeah, it's the same thing. Okay, always going to be the same guy, no matter what. So there's, I am jealous of the people who get to be themselves because I have to change it up. You know, like
Right.
that's I I think it also came with I had I have ADHD, and the way I identify with people is to kind of mirror them a little bit. You know, like when I was growing up, if I was in a group of athletes, I'd walk and talk like an athlete. If I was in a group of performers, I would do the same thing. Oh, Steve Buscemi is one of my white whales. I can't seem to figure out Steve Buscemi. He has these big teeth. I am the walrus. You know, I would love to do that. And by the way, John Goodman is another white whale, meaning I want to do the impression, but I can't figure it out for the life of me. So
Right.
that always
Is there
bothers
like a block when you can't figure it out? Is it like a similar to like a writer's block or a creativity block where you're just not getting it? There's
me.
something just
Yes,
stopping you,
yes,
and then
there is.
suddenly it hits you and you figure something
Yes,
out.
you really nailed it. I call it a key because I borrow the phrase from a map. Hold on
Right.
one second. Our pool man is outside and the dog is going absolutely nuts. So
That's
I
okay.
apologize. There is a key, and the key is, this is going to sound bad, but there's two ways to come across an impression. You figure it out yourself, which is really great. Rarely does that happen. What does happen most often is that you're out in the world and somebody says a word like that person. And because of that, now you know how to say that word as that person.
Right.
And now you can apply that key to every single word. And that is totally different. So, like, um, I wasn't able to do Barack Obama back in the day because I was doing, every president we had ever had a Southern accent. Okay. And so when they were doing it, they were just going, I was doing every impression of him had a Southern accent. And then I ran into a buddy who said, did you see that speech? This is 2008. He goes, did you see that speech last night or 2009? He goes, Obama said something that I'll never forget. Uh, he said, I won't do the impression, and then I'll do the impression. He goes, he was talking to a reporter, and the reporter said, so your mother was the one who always had to keep you in line. And he said, yes, if I had to do work late, she had to do work late. So if I'd complain, she'd say, It's no picnic for me either, Buster. And when I heard him say that, it's no picnic for me either, Buster, it was kind of like there's a key. No picnic for me either, Buster.
Yep.
And that was like, oh, he has this really hard bouncing ball, but then he also has this I'm trying to copy MLK. So so he do kind of like there's speaking of there was like I'm talking to the reporter Obama, and then there was now let's talk about this. Let's go over a way that all of us can come together. And then there was talking Obama, which was two things. Number one, I don't know if that's going to be easy for all of us to get. And so that I found that because of that clip, 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 that sound, it sticks in your brain, and then now you can apply it to all of those, and so it doesn't matter. It one day I'll be talking and then it'll click and then you have it. The only problem is my block comes at if if I have to do a voice of somebody who what comes out of their mouth most oftentimes is vitriolic or hateful or angry. My need to want to do the impression would be to satirize that, and I don't want to do that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I don't want to make fun of somebody by doing the impersonation. I want to shine them on. So when there has been requests of could you do this political figure or could you do this person, I'm like, I can't, because it's going to sound like I'm being mean, and I don't
Right.
want to. There's plenty of people who can do that, and that's fine. I'll watch that, but I won't do it because I just don't want to be like. There's a part of me that's like, oh crap, I don't want my face saying their words.
Right. Oh man. So AGT.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about your experience. I found your stuff on YouTube when you were on AGT, and I
Thank you.
watched it.
Appreciate it.
Tell us about that. What was that experience like?
That experience was insane because they take really good care of you, and I appreciate how much that show is genuinely trying to lift people up. Like um there will be a few people be like, I don't like the way I was represented or whatever. That's fine. You're the one who's saying it. You're ultimately they're not putting words in your mouth. You are. Okay. You're the one displaying it. And they had a long audition process that you have to go through. But the longer story is that when I first came to LA in 2010, Louis Anderson got me an audition to go up to AGT. And I went in there, and you want to know why I wasn't famous earlier? I sucked. I went out for that audition and I just blew it. And it was like 15, 13 years ago. And I went back to Louis and I was like, I messed it up. I don't think I did very well. And he's like, well, you'll go back and you'll get it someday when you're ready. And he died the year that I auditioned. And it was 3 months before the audition process started. And so it was, I remember thinking, all right, what could I do to show a little bit of gratitude for what he put out? Because he didn't just do that for me. He gave me my first big paid gig in LA. He got me in at the Comedy Store. He put me up in Las Vegas. So I was like, I have to do something. So I called the casting team that had offered to put me up once, and I said, hey, can we do this? And they said, yeah, let's try it. And they honestly were like, hey, people are going to find out about your family on here. Um, so either you tell everybody during your audition that your family's weird, or we do. Um, and I'm like, so for those who don't know, I'm in a polyamorous relationship. And so I have two female partners that I've been with for 7 years. And so that was the vetting process, is that we were like, okay, you're going to tell everybody about this, but also, is your family okay with this? And I really appreciated that about them, because they could have made me look weird or
Yeah.
gross or like, oh fuck, but they didn't. They were like, oh well, how wonderful. And when I got the 4 yeses, Simon Cowell's like, all right, he's got 6 yeses because he counted my 2 partners. And like when I was growing up, I used to think that it mattered who won stuff. But later in life, I realized that it's not who wins. It's what moments were made from every event. You know what I mean? Like, uh, you and I are tangential sports fans. My favorite moments aren't necessarily championship moments. They were the moments that got us to the next level or just snuck into the playoffs or something like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't just have to be a championship. So what I got out of it was what I was hoping for, which was some good tape and me saying to the world, hey, please don't hate me just because 3 people are in a relationship. And for the most part, unless you look on Facebook, everywhere else the comments are really nice and people are really nice. So that was good. And I'm really thankful that AGT is still running and giving people a shot. Because just like you said, there are 20, 30, 40 people each year who are 30-year overnight successes,
Yes.
And if there's anybody watching this right now who is thinking about any form of art at all, there is no championship. This is not sports. Okay. This is just the actual success of doing this is just continuing to do it.
Exactly.
It's so weird to think about it like that because we're Americans and we were born under the American flag. And I grew up with that same competitive spark that I got to win at all costs. And while that's good, it'll get you motivated and pushing on your track. You have to remember that if you're doing stuff that is based in opinion and subjective to everybody's opinion, then there is no winning. The winning is you continuing to do it without quitting.
Yeah.
And we're lucky enough in this history that we can look back at people like Picasso and Renoir and all these guys and artists who died poor and without any recognition for what they did. Well, we're not living in that time. We're living in a time where you can actually see what you can do. You can talk about the oil and gas industry and make a literal difference, whereas that was not an entertainment platform that we could have ever even imagined years ago. So the success is now changed.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say who, but I had a very large talent agent sit me down a couple of years ago, and they were like, the reason you're not further along is you're not competitive enough. You need to think about how I'm going to be the best who's ever lived, and you need to be out there more and every night. And I said, why? And he goes, so that you can demonstrate to the world what your legacy was. And I said, but I don't dictate my legacy. They do. And he goes, no, 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 you do. And I said, no, no, no. I I put the stuff out there. It's up for them to interpret, bro. Like, I can think I'm the greatest. So does Jamie Kennedy. Does that mean he is? No, no. It means that you are your own little art thing. And he's like, well, the problem is with you're liked by too many people. You need to be not liked by more people. And I was like, for what purpose? And he said, so that you can get people talking. And I said, so that I can get them angry at me? And he goes, yes. And I said, well, I think I'm going to disagree with you here. And he's like, well, if you don't have haters, then you're not going to get to that legend status. And I swear to God, I go, does the legend status come with friends and a family? And he's like, what's your point? And I said, the reason I'm asking is because the people you just mentioned, and I'm not going to mention those names because they'll give away who I'm talking to, people you just mentioned all either died of suicide, overdoses, died early from heart attacks. All of those men and women you just mentioned were 2, 3 times divorced, bankrupt. All of those things is like, yeah, but they're legends. And I'm like, buddy, I still have to live this fucking life.
Yeah.
Like, if the benefit is, oh, you'll die a legend, I'm not gonna get to drive on the street named after me, bud. Like, I'm not gonna. My
You'll be
favorite,
dead.
yeah, dude. My favorite broadcaster of all time is Dave Niehaus, who's the broadcaster of Seattle Mariners. We named a street Dave Niehaus Way, but only after he died, right? And I keep thinking of that every fucking day. Like, hey, man, you're the pushing. You just do this. Yeah, it's your wife's birthday, but come on, it's Biloxi, and you're like, but there ain't gonna be more wives' birthdays. There there isn't gonna be another time. This that will there has to be a balance, and because I remember starting this career thinking it's got to be like sports because failed athlete, wanted to be a professional athlete, ended up here. But it occurred to me that in sports there are winners, more scores, more championships. There's a definite, but not in this, man. This is art uh in its purest sense, and I can't make somebody like me.
Yeah.
I can only like me, and that's the best thing is that eventually, and it only happened like 4 years ago or 5 years ago, where I could say, oh yeah, I like my stuff. Like I like my comedy. I like the stuff I'm making, and that's because I had if you know who Brian Regan is, really famous comedian. He has a brother who's uh, also a fantastic comedian, and I had run into him and I said, I've been getting stuff from comedians who have told me not to do this, or don't do this, or don't do this, or you should do this. And I said, what should I do? And he goes, quick question. Are the things they're telling you not to do things that they do? And I said, no, they're the things that I do. And he goes, right. So they're telling you not to do the things that you do because they don't do them. And I was like, oh. And he said, mm-hmm. You're always going to get told by people who are not doing what you're doing to stop doing it
Yeah.
because you're a demonstration of what they're not doing. It's almost always about them. If they're giving you some sort of opinion, good or bad, if they're like, hey, you're doing something good, it's because they recognize that in themselves. So they at least have enough self-esteem to hand out compliments. It's like it's like at Halloween. You're not going trick or treating unless you have a bag at home. Then you can give out the stuff. You're like, if you need candy so bad, you're going to turn the lights off on your house and just walk from house to house to get candy. It's the people who have the candy that they're like, there you go. Isn't that nice? You're dressing up. Isn't that cute? So you can be one of the two.
So what I was thinking about when you were talking about this agency was it sounded to me like they missed it went right over their heads that they were trying to get you to turn what you do into a job.
Right.
And the last thing you want to do is something that is a job because everyone hates their job.
Correct.
You do what you do because you love it, not because you want a job.
Right.
Any money you make from that is a bonus, right? You do what you do because it makes you happy. And they wanted to turn it into a job, basically.
You nailed it on the head. What happens is they can see it as a dollar in, dollar out game.
Yeah.
And it's somebody in your chat just said agents are always about the money. And it is. In that particular case, what they were saying was you got to look at your year as uh, they're going, okay, well, there's 365 days in a year, 52 weeks. If I get you touring for 34 of them, that'll set the record for most tour dates. And you're like, okay, well, that's a definitive thing that they're talking about. There's a mark. But really what they're saying is I get 15% of every single one of those.
Yes.
Okay. Good for you. However, not because the places are bad or whatever. It just might be so much time in the circle around. There was 2 years in which I did 32 weeks a year. And God bless my wife, she was able to deal with it, but god damn, I mean, there's no there, of course there musicians and comics are, screwed up. You spend so much time away from your family. It sucks.
It
So
pulls you from reality.
yeah, and here's what also happens, and everybody notices this is about comedy and music specifically, is that what happens when you're just on the road making money all the time and you're just making money is you have no life to pull from.
Yeah.
It Why do comics always talk about airports, airplane food, all that? Because that's where we are. That's the only place we are. We're
Yes.
only there and in hotels. So all of our stuff, when you become successful, eventually your material becomes unrelatable. Your No offense to Kevin Hart, but his last special or Ellen DeGeneres' last special or a few of these big comics last specials, they're talking about stuff I can't relate to. I was at the Palms, I was on my private jet. I was buddy, you know, Zane, your boy just said comedy sounds like the oil field. It is. It is. You the second you get the second you have your Derek strike pay dirt, then you're like, okay, well I can sit back on this, and now you lose your edge. You're not drilling. You're not looking for the next thing. You're like, oh shit, there, and then so you sit in this little plot, and you're like, this oil is just going to keep coming up, and that's what happens. These celebrities, they don't live a life anymore. They live this sort of thing, and
Mhm.
what happens? Why are they in everything? Why are they everywhere? Because they got an agent going. You got to make money while the sun is up. Mm-mm. If I can give one piece of advice, it's this. If you're going to live a life where your job isn't a job, it's more of a lifestyle or a career, oil, comedy, sales, any kind of art, then the goal shouldn't be the amount of money. It should be how spectacular can I make my days? Because that is the artistic side that most people don't get to live. Your job as an artist isn't to be rich. Your job is to live a really rich life, not of financial richness, but of like experiential richness, so that when you make art, you're like, this is where it came from. It came because I was out at this retirement community in Boca Raton and met all these wonderful people and I learned these stories. And you're like, why were you there? I don't know. It sounded like the weirdest, coolest gig I could do. I mean, I have said yes to weird shit like the mayoral conference where I was like doing stand up at the mayor's ball or on a cruise ship with a liquor company who I won't mention. But they took me out on a cruise ship and I'm like, it this or it's like, oh, that's a story. That's a story. Live for the story, And I'm not rich, but the stories are I won't shut up. So
Right.
I got a ton of those.
And that's true. If you asked me today, hey, what years did you make the most money? I couldn't tell you.
No.
I don't remember them.
Right.
They're not, and if I don't remember them, how great could they have been, right?
Boy, I mean, it's such an interesting point because there were times in my career where there was steady income. And I was like, okay, that was great. But I look at that big chunk of time and I was just, as Bill Burr would say, a bill paying machine. I was just paying bills and time was flying.
Yes.
But I hate to say this, but when you're struggling a little bit, time slows down. You're like, oh, I got to get every minute of every day is important. I got to but you're soaking it up, man.
Yeah.
You're really, I mean, I can tell you that my partners will say occasionally, they're like, it's grind time. And there's like I'll go into like a week of like, I just got to, and what comes out of that week of stress is prosperity for like 2 years. But it came from, I'm going to pull my teeth out with my own fingers because you got to make it happen.
Yeah.
You have to go knock on the doors. You have to go send the emails. You have to make the calls. It's always got to be you. And time passes quickly for mortals. Yeah, it does. Yeah, truly.
So you're currently, doing a tour type thing with some people from TikTok.
That's right.
Um, how is that going? And are you having fun? And do you where do you see it? Because here's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing these people. I follow these people, right?
Of course.
And I see them doing stand up comedy. And I've never seen them really do that on TikTok. Their
Hmm.
content is funny,
Hmm.
but stand-up comedy is like
Different
so
beast.
I did stand-up comedy in a talent show, and it was the scariest thing I've ever done in my life.
How was it? How long did
But
you do?
I killed it. But
Yeah.
but what the people didn't know was I totally robbed everything I did up there was from other comedians. Because when I was a kid, I was a comedy junkie, and all I did was listen to like Robin Williams and Richard
Me too.
Pryor 24
Me
hours
too.
a day.
Me
I
too.
stole all their jokes and I tweaked
Yeah.
them a little bit,
Yeah.
and I killed it. But I was never been more scared in my life. To this day, I've never been that scared in my life. But
It's
so I'm
very
seeing
scary.
these people doing comedy. Are they good? Like, have
There.
they picked it up?
Here's what's so nuts. I do think about Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 Hours a lot, and um, back in the day, I didn't used to think content creation on the internet was the same as stand up, and it's not. However, there is a lateral similarity, which is you still have to deal with the comments. You still have to make the funny stuff. You have to make it over and over and over and over. And these creators have been doing that for 5 years. So when they came, when I saw them do stand up and everything, they kind of came to me too and were like, hey, you do stand up. What does this look like? Does this look like this? And the great news is they have been making comedy in short form
Yeah.
in this form, and because they're older, they're Gen X, they had the life experience to pull from. Whereas most people, if I start them on a stand up routine where I have to go, like, where are we going? What are we starting with? It's usually someone in their 20s or 30s. And no offense, they don't really have anything to pull from. I think comedy is Carol Burnett saying all comedy is tragedy plus time. And the older you get, the more tragedy you have. So I'm not saying all of my friends here in this group are tragic, but I'm saying that we have all stepped in it. And when you can communicate to an audience, I think the key is you have to do one of two things. You have to create a fictitious character, i.e., um, um, oh shoot, now I forgot his name. The guy does the intentionally the I hate kids. Anthony Jeselnik. Jeselnik creates a character, an unlikable character, right? He's
Yeah.
like, I'm doing this. It's a character. It's not real. I'm intentionally making this up. Same thing with like Stephen Wright, or like I don't really talk like this. I don't really. It's not how he talks, right? But it's a character. Or or you have to be completely genuine. Completely genuine. Richard Pryor, completely
Yes.
genuine. Just he shot the car. And he's not in this car. Like that's it has to be a real story about real pain. And as a comic, I have been traveling most of my life as an individual, with maybe one comic if you're lucky and you get to bring a host or a feature with you, or you are the host of the feature. So if you're lucky, you get to be with one person. But now I get to be with four other people, and that is for a little codependent ADHDer very helpful. So I'm not, going back to the red roof and just like that's the sad part about comedy is that I don't stay after and hook up with anybody. So I just go back to the hotel. And so when you go from yay to
Quiet. Yeah.
quiet. And if you want to know why most of us die of drug overdoses, there it is.
Yeah.
Try coming down from a standing ovation to asking if they have a continental breakfast in the morning because you got to go back to Milwaukee. You feel like up here and then you're just all the way back down here every fucking night. So if you have some other people to share it with, oh, and I'll tell you this much: I'm an old millennial. I'm 42, so I remember the digital era coming on to my generation. So I remember the time before it. So I identify a lot with the Gen X teams. So it's nice to be with some people who we got Kelly Mano, the dad bod veteran, John Wellington, Nick Harrison, and Sherry, the real Slim Sherry. They're all funny. They're all great. And what's even nicer is that because of TikTok and because of this, there's no rules anymore. No rules.
Yeah.
The comedy used to have like a set of rules. Fuck that. We do a variety show. We'll put up sketches and stuff and music cues and whatever we want to do because screw it, man. You took away my comedy. So when it came back, I was like, I'm gonna do whatever the fuck I want.
Yes.
As much as we want, because I there was that little bit of I didn't have that in me of, hey man, you took this from me. It's almost as if since 2020, I have well, you pissed off the nice guy, you know. And the only anger I have in me is that we still can't be more kind and considerate. You know, you don't have to agree with somebody. Do yourself a favor. Try to put yourself in their shoes first. Then you can still say, I don't agree, but I can see where you're coming from. And that's not easy to do, but that'll quell a lot of problems. You know, you do that so well for me, honestly, is that you're able to explain things on a technical side and an emotional side that I have not been able to put myself in that empathetic place for things that I don't understand. And having you do it has made it so that there are a lot of people I understand now that I didn't before.
Yeah.
And I think one of your buds said George Carlin's 7 words. I mean, there's another example of it. It's like, hey, that album was called AM FM.
Mhm.
AM was the beginning set, and it was clean and hippy dippy weatherman, and I don't want to get on the plane, I want to get in the plane. And then the next one, piss shit cock motherfuckers and tits. You know, like he went the opposite side. He's like,
Yeah.
okay, there you go. And he was the first one to go, here's the silliness and here's the real. And he and Chris Titus both share a very similar thought process, which is they say this: start with silly, universal. George Carlin always said, you know what we don't talk about enough? Pussy farts. Why don't we talk about pussy farts? You know, like he'd start with something silly out there, then
Yeah.
he would go in the middle to the real shit. This is the stuff that's really bothering us. And then
Yeah.
at the end, he said he would go, but that's okay. We're going to be fine. We'll be fine. Save the trees, save the whales, save those snails. Right? And he'd bring it back to a unifying point. Christopher Titus said, if I make you laugh till you pee for 55 minutes, you'll give me 5 minutes of crying. And I was like, ooh, that's good. Because if somebody opens me up and makes me laugh for a good chunk of time, if they then go, all right, now come here. Here's the real part. Then I will listen. I will listen to that person because they know that life is futile. It's short. It's fleeting. It's a joke. The more you take it seriously, the less you'll get out of it. And if somebody has the balls to make fun of themselves and make fun of this whole process and then go, but this is the real deal, then I'm going to trust you. It's the people who go, it's always serious. You can't make fun of this. No, you don't get it. You don't get it. You don't get the tomorrow you're dead. That's hilarious. If that's not hilarious, then what is? You know?
Yeah. And you're right about Carlin. And one of the reasons I loved Carlin is his, he would always say, I don't do transitional material. He always did transitional. Like, and the thing that just popped in my head was he would go from, why did they make a weather vane out of a cock? Because if it was a cunt, the wind would blow right through it. He would go from that to the government's literally trying to kill you in about
Right.
5 minutes.
Right.
And he would bring you from here to reality just like that. And
He
that was one of the things, people called him a wordsmith, but he was much more than that.
correct.
He could bring your emotions up and down and he had complete control over your emotions.
He knew that the tangential emotion of what the fuck on the weather vane is also the same what the fuck on this. And so if he's like, see, this silly feeling you have right here is also the feeling I'm having about this lobbyist group. And you're
Yeah.
like, oh, I can have that same contempt. And the and we're seeing it now. If you lambaste somebody with a real good observational joke and say, hey, the point of this joke is to say that you're not considering this. That's the essence of comedy. The essence of comedy is here's reality. You didn't think about this. And
Yep.
this over here is the side point that isn't available to everybody else because the comedian is standing away from the group. And if they can go, oh, you've been thinking about this for years. That makes sense, right? What about this? Then all of a sudden, everybody who subscribed to that, they were like, this is who I am. This is everything I was about. Then you have taken a shot at that. And that person, if they have good humility and knowledge and wisdom, they go, huh, oh, I'll adapt to that. But if they're stupid and ignorant and egocentric, they'll go, no, 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 you can't make fun of that. You can't say that. That's no. Mm-mm-mm. I have always said, even in a political standpoint, if a candidate can look at themselves and go, here's what I'm good at, here's what I fail at. And they can say, I'm really good here. Also, I like this joke about me because I'm not good at this. Boy, oh boy, do you gain my trust. Because that says to me, whether you're a business leader or a family leader or a politician, if there is evidence provided to me that is besting me and I'm listening and I go, oh, I may not be right here, then you'll listen to the smarter person in the room. And it's the person who goes, no, but I'm always the smartest person in the room. Then you're not.
Right.
You're not by a mathematical equation. You're just fucking not, bro. So
Can
that's
you, I don't know why, but about a half a dozen times during this conversation, Mitch Hedberg has popped into my head.
yeah,
But
man.
can you can you watch a comedian and tell who their biggest influences in comedy were by the way they present or their uh,
One
you
hundred
know
percent.
you
One
can?
hundred percent. There's only a few different writing styles in comedy. We consider it the vaudevillian setup punch. All right, so the vaudevillian setup punch is premise, opinion, switch. I went to the that's Rodney Dangerfield, right?
Right.
I went to the doctor. He said I got high blood pressure. All right, setup, doctor. We've all been to the doctor. Opinion. I got high blood pressure. I said I want a second opinion. He goes, you're ugly too. Right? The switch is you wouldn't expect him to say you're ugly. There's the switch. So it's boom, boom, boom. One,
Yeah.
2, 3. If you have a 1, 2, 3 structure, I know that you're part of this lineage of stand-ups. Okay? That means you're of this ilk. Your favorite people are over here. If you're of the self-discovery and story, then you started with Lenny Bruce, and then you went to Robert Klein, and then you went to George Carlin, and then you went to Bill Hicks, and then you went to that's the line of the real shit. I'm gonna get real gritty with it. That's
Mhm.
that essence, right? And then there's a third group. The third group is what I call the clowns. The clowns are Jerry Lewis. It started with Jerry Lewis. He created little stand-up sets and little bits, and then it went up from there into Steve Martin. Steve Martin saw a time in which we were really crazy serious with the oil problems in the 1970s and Iran and all that stuff, and so he came in with a fucking arrow through his head and said, "Mind if I fart?" Right? So he's silly and goofy,
Yeah.
and so there's this third vein, right? The silly, goofy entertainer, Jim Carrey, Dane Cook, The Impressionists, Dana Carvey, Rich Little, silly for the sake of silly. Kaufman is of that same. Someone just put Kaufman is in the middle of the two. He's like that weird, outlier. There's always a performance artist. He would be Bo Burnham now, right? So I know where they're coming from when I hear their jokes. Like there's
Right.
for a while, Brian Regan was so influential that we all did Brian Regan's voice. Like he did this character. If he's talking in an act and he'd be like, so I went to the optometrist and I was like, hey, is anybody in here? He would do this. That's his dumb voice, and we would all do it. Every comedian for a long time would be like, so I went to the DMV and the guy behind the counter is like, hey, do you have 2 pesos on blah blah blah? Like we'd copy him. Interestingly enough, Jerry Seinfeld has never had a joke where he said, what's the deal with this? Never said it. He's never said, what's the deal with? But when we parody him, his wordsmith is, and why is he 6 feet above everybody else? The Chinese, what I like about the Chinese, those are his actual intros. It's not what's the deal, but somebody else took all of his little intros and went, oh, that's essentially just what's the deal.
Yeah. Because that's what we hear, even if he's not saying it. Exactly.
It is the Mandela effect of our own brains. Is like, oh wow, I feel the feeling of it, but it's never really said it. So if you look at my comedy, I'm a little bit Steve Martin-y and a little bit Robert Klein. And Robert Klein was my first favorite comic, and he was a Jewish American comedian who told long stories, and he had a lot of specials. And at the end of his special, he was the first HBO special ever, Robert Klein. And at the end of his specials, he'd always end with music. He would bring out a band and he would play 2 or 3 songs, and the last song would be a song he'd called "I Can't Stop My Leg," and he would he'd play a harmonica in the song "I Can't Stop My Leg." I can't stop my leg. And he would just do like blues, but he did 15 HBO specials. So he did rock and roll, I can't stop my leg, reggae, I can't stop my leg, classical, I can't. Like he understood that there was a entertainment part of it too. So like there's always that's such a really great question because we're all just standing on somebody else's shoulders. When you said you took from the other great performers, we all did. I mean,
I was like 17 years old. Like it was a last minute thing. It was a talent show. But I loved comedy. Like I just listened to it on cassette tapes, like every day.
Who are your favorites?
Who
are your favorites? As you said, Carlin, and like, are there any deep cuts that you love?
Well, at that time, it changes throughout your life, right?
Of course, based on your emotional state, for sure.
But at that time, it would have been 1990, right? Mm-hmm. I could not get enough Robin Williams. Like and it was just that time. Like now looking back on it, I have comedians that where I see their genius more, right? But at that time, Robin, I was never a huge fan of like Eddie Murphy Raw.
No, me.
A lot of people love that. I didn't.
I wasn't a big fan of those 2 specials. Yeah, I didn't.
Yeah, I didn't see like any comedic genius in it, and that's what I looked for. For me, it's not enough for you to be funny. Right. It's not. I need to be convinced.
Yes, bro. I'm the same way. And this is not a knock on Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart's funny, but he's not convincing me of anything.
Yeah,
and that's great. There's a space in the comedy world for that, but it's not the thing I'm going to return to every time.
Yeah.
And the guys I return to every time now who are blowing me away are like Gary Goldman or Greg Giraldo back in the day, or Maria Bamford every day. These are the type of people who are, Maria and Goldman are open about Maria's schizophrenic. She's like, I'm a bipolar schizophrenic. And Gary's like, I have chronic depression. And that he is as good looking and as tall and as athletic and as smart as you could possibly be, and he has problems. That was I sent him personal messages after that. Like I'd performed with him, but I'm like, dude, this is changing the world. To see a 6'6" athletic dude go, yeah, I was crying in my basement, not figuring I couldn't get out of it. What? You? All right, maybe I can get up and maybe I can shake it off, and we need someone like that, and I am so much more thankful now for the people who maybe didn't get their big star, but they put out some real good stuff, you
Yeah.
know. And there's plenty of that. And there's still plenty of people doing that today too. And our new platforms like the YouTube and TikTok and all that stuff makes it that the meritocracy can start to work now. And I perfect perfect point is none of the people I'm on tour with have ever been in a TV show or a film. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. We have wonderful people coming out and filling up giant places because this is the new form of entertainment. This
Yeah.
relatability, Have you ever thought about going up and doing it again though, bud? Because you could.
I don't know, man. I have these moments of greatness, and I have long periods of mediocrity. So I don't know.
That's actually the name of my book. Long periods of mediocrity.
Is it really?
No, I'm saying,
Oh,
I'm saying like that. That could be my book title. Justin Ruppel, Long Moments of Mediocrity.
but no, with like Mitch Hedberg, like
Yeah.
it's weird because when I think of Mitch Hedberg, I don't think of someone who was tremendously funny.
Right.
I think of he made it so simple, and there was so much simplicity in it that every joke he told, I was sitting there like, why didn't I think of that? Like, why didn't I think of that? Like, because he had dumbed it down so much for us. And then through that process, it becomes funny. Like,
Bro,
it's not funny, but it's hilarious because it's the simplicity in it. Like,
I think you probably saw this. I did on TikTok and Instagram where I was like, here's how good Mitch Hedberg was. I can do Mitch Hedberg doing other people's jokes. Here's Mitch Hedberg doing Jerry Seinfeld. All right. Hey, man. The other day I went in the pharmacist. Hey, why's that pharmacist got to be 3 feet above everybody else, man? You're just up there with pills. How about I tell you how many you want and you just hand them to me, man? This isn't a prize, it's my prescription.
exactly.
Exactly. He just he just had the most simple observations. Escalator can never break, it can only become stairs. Never see an escalator out of order sign, just an escalator temporarily stairs. Sorry for the convenience.
And that's the thing. Like, he would do that.
Yeah.
And you would, like, the next day, someone's at the pharmacy going, hey, why are you up there 3 feet? And the next day, someone's at an escalator that's not working, and they're like, hey, these are stairs. These work fine.
Brother,
Like,
man, I'm not good at saving receipts, but I save every donut receipt because of that motherfucker.
oh,
I would save a receipt. The guy I went the other day to buy a donut. The guy gave me a receipt. I was like, we don't need to bring pen and paper into this. How about I give you $1 and you give me the donut? End of transaction. I can't think of a time I would need to prove I got a donut. Go ask her to buy that donut. I have the receipt right here under D for donut.
I think about that every morning. I go to the same convenience store every
Yeah.
morning. I get up and I go to my little hometown convenience store.
Yeah.
And every morning, the lady who I know very well, you want a receipt? And it was a
No.
couple of weeks ago. I asked her, I'm like, have you never seen Mitch Hedberg? And she's like,
Oh,
yeah, yeah. I was like, has it never dawned on you that you're asking me for like 4 years
receipt.
straight, every morning for 4 years, you've asked me if I've wanted a receipt for a freaking biscuit?
Bro. Can't think of a time.
I'm
The
not bringing
CPA's
it
like,
back, bro.
hey man, I want to see that receipt for that biscuit, man. I here's the thing. I'm looking at my wall. I've got all these comedians that I got autographs from over the years, and somebody in your chain put, "I adore Rita Rudner." Rita Rudner used to have um, that same way of writing that was very Mitch Hedbergy. She would do this bit. She'd be like, "I would like to have kids, but the older you get, the more people you meet, and that means you can't name your child something that you don't like." And she's like, "So by the time I have children, my two choices will be Hitler or Jethro." And she's like, "And I just met a customer service agent named Jethro." And you're like, just such perfect lineup. And her punchlines still, she has one of those punchlines that was like, she's like, "My husband can't find anything because he can't see behind things. Every time he asks me, 'Honey, where's the beer?' And I'd say, 'It's behind the milk.'" And behind the milk is like the most called back thing in our family. "Honey, where is it? Did you check behind the milk?"
Yes.
And comedians call that phrase sticky. If you have a joke that when you take it out of there, it sticks with you. Oh
Right.
boy. Like, that's such a genius. That's the pay dirt you're going for, man.
Yeah. Because the
Yeah.
milk is the biggest thing in the fridge.
Yeah.
And if you can't find what's in the fridge, it's probably
It's
behind the
behind the
base.
milk. It's behind the milk. It's behind the milk. And but it's the simplicity. Also, the specificity. If you want to be really, really funny, I always say that there. I always use this line from Ellen DeGeneres. She's like, "There are some things in the world that we all realize that we do together, but no one even talks about it." She goes, "We all make this motion all the time," and uh, and I was like, "What is this?" She goes, "This is the toilet paper claw." And she's like, when you're reaching for the toilet paper? And I was like, "Oh." And she goes, "Actually, this is also the pickle claw." And the specificity of now every time I do that, Ellen DeGeneres,
Sticky.
sticky. So
Yes.
if you're gonna be funny, very specific. Be very specific. Like if a cash out person, "What do you got? You got plans for tonight?" If your joke is to say, "No, I'm gonna go home and cry myself to sleep," that's not as funny as, "I'm going to go home and watch Law and Order and regret my life." Far more specific. Why
Right.
Law and Order? Why, like the specificity. Always just go more specific. I'm telling you, it's always the better, like, well, how much is your life worth? Well, do you have the Kelly Blue Book on a 1996 Honda Accord? Why is that funnier than $25? Because it's just funnier.
Right.
Specificity. Those are the rules.
Because people have so much in common and we don't realize that
Yes.
everyone else, in this world has the same experiences we do. It's like with the toilet paper thing, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
when you hit something that we all have a common experience with, everyone can relate to that, and they're like, wow, that makes it sticky, right?
Yep. We don't.
Someone
We.
has gone home and watched Law and Order and thought
Yep.
about all of
Yep.
the bad decisions,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Yep.
That's your audience.
It is so. Jack Johnson has this one song that I think I used in my vows, which was everybody. He says in one of his songs, "Everybody thinks that everybody knows about everybody else, but nobody knows anything about themselves because they're all worried about everybody else." And every time I think about that little line, I'm like, "Oh, that's what's happening." Every day, we're so worried about what other people are thinking about us that we're not thinking about the things that we're doing. We're just worried that other people will see past our little mask. And if you just make a note of everything you do in a day, "I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this," specific things. I went into the bedroom, I folded my clothes, I put on my shoes, I went out to the car, I started. Those are the things you share with everybody. They
Yep.
are. And it doesn't feel like it, but those frustrations and those things, those are your whole life. And if you just more open to it and going, look, the truth is we share far more than we disagree on. And it's hard to say it, especially in a time like this. But the number one question comedians get asked right now is, isn't it hard? Isn't it hard to do comedy right now? Isn't it so hard with it? No, it's way easier when everybody's tense.
Yeah.
Because if you've ever been to a funeral, you'll know you laugh really fucking hard there.
Yeah.
Because when things are tense and we are confronted with the mortality that we're all going to run into, you have to laugh. You have to just
Yeah.
go, this is stupid. What are we doing? And that is why I like this little community that we're in. We get to, I mean, you make me laugh daily. Somebody in your comment chain asked me to say, yeah, that's not how that works. And brother, I honestly, that fish hook on your hat, man. That I've seen that is like a engraved. I almost got a tattoo of that hook on that hat, bro. Because and it. I don't know if you noticed this too about TikTok specifically. I've made this joke in my act recently. TikTok knows me so well that in the morning it gives me news and commentary. In the afternoon, it gives me Schadenfreude, people falling and tripping and silliness. And then late at night, it's like, boobs?
Exactly.
It's like, pretty people? Would you like some treat? Fall asleep to some pretty people? And you're like, yeah, I do. It knows, it knows me so well.
It's
So every
scary.
morning, there's you. I don't think that's how that works. And then every afternoon, someone's getting kicked in the balls.
I hadn't
It's
thought about it, but my content probably changes throughout the day too. I
it
hadn't thought
does.
about that, but
It does. It does by how it fits into my FYP. And I also like when I post something and then it goes right to my followers, and then I'm like, ooh, I really like everything that's coming up. It's because you're on your follower page, you idiot. Why don't you just stay on there more? Like I have a whole bunch of people always go, you haven't made it to my FYP, and I'm like, because you're not checking your follower page. That's
yeah.
where the people you click yes on. That's where we are.
Do you ever scroll your follower page and like, why am I following these people? Like, are you ever like, what was I thinking? Like,
Yes.
there's like
Yes.
one person here who,
Yep.
does anything for me. What am I doing? Like, sometimes I'm on my follower page and I'm just like, how did I get here? Like,
Yeah.
what am I looking at?
Usually it was someone being nice to me, and I was like, "Oh," and they commented or they did something, and then I liked and followed, and then I'm like, "Oh, I shouldn't have liked and followed." Like, we don't agree on a lot. This is messing up my FYP.
I do get more sarcastic as the day goes because I'm dealing with a lot more ignorance as I progress through the day. It's just piling up on me. And
How do you? Let me ask this: how do you? And it's a real question because I occasionally my stuff won't just be funny, it'll be sincere, and when it is sincere or when there's something where I'm taking a point, um how do you rid yourself of the comments and the interaction, because you specifically have people come back at you? uh it's like, what how do you calm down from that? How do you get yourself off that adrenaline ride of like, they're fucking wrong, like how do you get there?
so, people see me going back and forth with some person. What they don't see is the 200 people I ignored.
Right.
Like, I could make 50 videos a day of me going back and forth with people.
Right.
Like, because I'm just inundated with this all day, every day. And then by mid afternoon or afternoon, I'm like, okay, I got to address somebody. Like, I got to vent. I got to let something out. And so I
Right.
just pick somebody and go
Pick.
after 'em.
Right.
Like, you win.
Congratulations, I pulled into the bucket and it's you, jackhole. Yeah. Well, that's it's one of the things I really appreciate, and this is the knock on me is my friends and family will be like, "Hey, um when I share your stuff, they're like, "Hey, take a page out of his book," as in like you don't get angry. You still keep in character of I'm still going to talk in this normal pattern and we're going to get it up, like, but I, as you can see from our conversation, can get a little riled up.
Hmm.
And what ended up happening is I would come back at someone in a comment and then I could feel it in my throat, like the, and I was like, okay, I have to find a way that if I'm going to respond to something, I have to keep my own sanity and not be, so what you just said is the ignoring thing. How do you just, what is the contemplative process that allows you to just ignore it? Like, oh, they're just wrong, or like, I mean,
You know what it was?
mm,
And I don't listen to the Joe Rogan podcast,
mhm,
but I was scrolling through some social media app one day, and Joe Rogan was talking. It might have been TikTok, might have been YouTube, I don't know.
sure.
And someone asked Joe Rogan how he dealt with the comments, and he said, "I just ignore everybody."
Mm,
And that was the 3 seconds of that video that I actually caught. And for some reason, it stuck in my brain.
nice.
And from that moment on, I started ignoring a lot more people. But I find it impossible for me to ignore everybody.
Right. It is I think oftentimes about that scene in American President, that film with whatever the one of the whatever his name was. But there was this line where Michael J. Fox was talking about, this guy who's attacking you in the press, sir. You got to come back at him, and he's like, "I will not dignify Michael Douglas. I will not dignify their attacks with a response." And he's like, "Sir," he goes, "You have to." And he's like, "Yeah, but they're not talking about my policy. They're talking about my life." And he goes, "And that's not what they're voting on." He goes, "It is what they're voting on. Because if the people are thirsty and there is no water to drink."
I think we lost him. We'll see if he comes back. Is that what happened? Yeah. He worked too much. He worked too much. Look at him. At least he froze on a funny face. That's right. I wonder if he could see us and hear us. Did Jill mute the guest? Is that what happened? We'll give him a minute or two here. I think my moderator muted Justin, kicked him out. Let's see if we can get him back. Here he comes. Yeah, that's
Phone died. Phone died.
love technology.
Well, I was just so excited I forgot to plug in my phone. But yeah, dude, I was just I can't remember what I was talking about now. Oh,
Michael Douglas and
yeah. So he said you gotta go back and say something back, and if you allow other people to talk in your place, about you, and you never say anything back, then they will listen to the incorrect information. And so that stuck with me, which is, hey, and this is something I truly believe in. Occasionally, if there's somebody who's a real troll or a real mean person says something, and I actually address it in the comments to the effect of like, hey, this isn't a behavior I like. If you want my attention, you can be kind to me, or hey, did this make you feel better to say something mean here? And actually ask the question like, that hurt me. Was that what you were going for? And when you actually say that to somebody, it'll make them go, either, yeah, I was aiming to hurt you. And then they have to say that out loud. Like, hey, so that's what you're trying to do? And occasionally when they go, I was trying to hurt you. And I went, that was successful. Why? And they'll go, I shit you not. They'll come in my instant messages and I'll be like, well, because I'm hurt. And I'm like, right. Let's not continue that cycle, shall we? Let's not be part of this.
Right.
I remember a couple times actually going back to somebody and being like, hey, one of my someone comments on my videos all the time, and I did an impression that I really like, and they went, that sounds like shit. You don't sound anything like them. And I went to their personal comments, or their DMs, and I was like, hey bud, I don't know what you do for a living, but if you were posting it online and I was saying, hey, you're really shitty at that, would that hurt you? And he went, no, I'd probably take it as criticism and then take it in. I was like, right. Would you rather me tell everybody my criticism, or would you rather just say it to me privately? And he goes, well, I'd rather you say it to me privately. And I was like, right, because if I said it to my 700,000 followers across all platforms that you suck at your job, it might be kind of painful, right? And he's like, right. And I was like, right. So if you're going to say something constructive, why not do it on a one-to-one basis so that we can talk about it constructively? Because otherwise it seems like you're just trying to get attention. And if you want attention from me, say something kind and I'll respond much faster.
Yeah.
But this doesn't work. And occasionally I have to do that because I don't want those people living on my page. I just don't want it there. Like, and I will fight back with them, but do the Socratic method. Like, was that constructive? Was that nice? Do you feel better saying that? And honestly, the gang up on them in the comment chain, like, yeah, that was kind of a dick move. Why would you do that? I'm like, that's all I wanted. I want you to see that this kind of behavior is not how we would talk in the public square. Like that blows me away.
So I want you to settle. It's not really a debate.
Please.
I can say we're settling a debate, but I want your opinion on something.
Got it.
Okay. I think it exists in Facebook Messenger. It's definitely in TikTok Messenger where you can poke somebody, right? You can send them a poke,
right?
Which in itself is a little creepy. Okay. A guy pokes a girl, okay, on TikTok. They don't know each other in any way at all. All right. So there's a complete stranger in your messages sending you a poke, right?
Right.
Is that or is that not a way of flirting with that girl?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. 100%.
I don't think I was. Yeah, I was like, I was waiting for the rest of the question. Yeah, absolutely. That's. Yeah, I mean, there's flirting. Flirting is in its essence. In its essence, is tossing out something innocuous and hoping that it's talked about. Hey, the weather today, right? Tossing something out there. So a poke, that's what it is.
Yeah. And just so you know, the person that got poked is down below. And they're listening. So when I told them, they were like, this Trumper poked me. And I'm like, they were hitting on you. They thought you were a smoke show. And they were like, no. And I'm like, yes.
Sorry.
Yes. You got a Trumper.
That'll happen. Listen, poking is the new accidentally bumping into somebody at the oops, sorry. Oh, pardon me. Yeah, that's what that. Yeah. Sorry, Jill. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Yeah. And she's the one that gave herself up. She, her responses gave it up. But yeah, it's like the new "Have we met somewhere?" It's
Ooh, that was
that.
a good one. You look
Yeah.
familiar. That was always a really good one. I remember that not working for me. Yeah. Bro, I was so bad at flirting that I needed the only way I met my wife is her sister flirted for her and me. We couldn't flirt. We were so socially inept at doing that. I both my part. I can't flirt. I'm not great at it. So
Me neither.
I don't poke anybody.
I was always afraid that I was going to somehow offend the woman, or
Mm,
because I try to be very aware of how women feel
mhm,
and how men approach them. And
right.
maybe I was way too cautious, but I was always scared to approach a woman because I didn't want to make them uncomfortable in any way. And so typically a woman would have to approach me.
Correct.
Um,
Honestly,
unless
that's a
some conversation started naturally that I wasn't giving any effort to. I was never the guy that hit on women.
it was made aware to me later when I was able to listen to two adult women talk to each other without a filter. That what is so hard for males to understand specifically is that we are bigger and deeper voiced, and so when we say something that sounds innocuous to ourselves, depending on where we are in a physical relation to an exit or a aisleway or a whatever, women will be like, I don't know, can I get out of this if I need to? And that's the thing that we don't as men think about, because we're like, in our head we're like, oh, we're being nice here, but they don't know if our version of nice is I want to chain you to something. It's like, right? Like, because there are men whose first questions are, "It's nice out today. Oh, is that a pink car? Do you like BDSM?" And you're like, "Jesus, buddy, what are you doing?" And so, yeah, the cognizant males are the ones who, I think the only good way to flirt is to do something kind in the direction of the person you're hoping to flirt with, in hopes that something comes back, but not expecting something to come back.
Yes.
So, like, someone's in line and you want to flirt with them, and you'd be like, "You can cut in front of me if you like." That's a flirt, right?
Yes.
Because then it's like they can get out of your way. They can go, "Well, thank you so much." And where are you headed to? There, that opens them up for their return back. But when you, and this was hard because this is a generational thing, I think. Complimenting somebody on their physical appearance or something like that in public can be frightening to women specifically, because it's like, hey, what are you trying to get out of this? You want a quid pro quo. You want something back from me, and if I don't give it back to you, are you going to be mad? And that's what I didn't understand, is that I only didn't understand because I've never been really hit on that much by men until I went to Palm Springs. But sometimes they don't take no. And it's just like, ooh, this is a fun game. And you're like, no, it's a no. It's a no, bro. And that's what did they always say? Men understand consent when they're in a gay club. You're like, oh, I said no, and he keeps coming. How much more no can you get? And you're like, oh, okay, there you go. So the key to flirting is like, you got to do something in hopes that something maybe return back if they look and go, oh, but then it's that expectation of return, man. That's the tough part.
So you never had a guy hit on you on TikTok?
No, well, yes, on TikTok, but I can get out of that. Listen, men will I've been hit on more by men than women in my life, because guys are more aggressive,
Yeah.
like, guys will just tell you. And I think there was, for a long time, and I don't blame them, that men just deal with rejection more. Um and so I think guys are just like, yeah, he did rejected me, so what, but it's rare that, or I'll put it this way: if women were hitting on me, I didn't recognize it, because
Exactly.
because their version of it was not something that I was like, yeah, that makes sense. No, like,
we're
occasionally,
we're dumb. We really are. Like men
oh
are
yeah,
really
you gotta.
dumb.
in order for me to talk to my wife, her sister had to say, "My sister thinks you're hot." I was like, "Okay, that's enough," right? She had to explicitly say that. If she had said, "Hey, my sister over there, what do you think? She's pretty cute," I would have been like, "Yeah, she is. What do you want me to do about it?" I'm the host on this comedy show. I'm not even the headliner. I don't even deserve to be talking to this woman. So, but there's a large faction of males who were taught by other males. Hey, the way you do it is until she says no, and you're like, bro, you're making this hard for all of us. You're just making this all look bad.
So Jill had a question. If they call you stupid and then poke you, is it still hitting on you? And I say yes,
It
because
is.
they're like children, and that's how children flirt.
I was gonna say
Yeah.
the exact same thing. That is the equivalent of pushing the girl down in kindergarten
Yes.
or pulling her pigtails. Good God, how immature! Oh, I'm so sorry, Jill. On behalf of all men, I'm just I'm also a male who knows I'm doing this behavior. So I'm like I'm apologizing because I know I've done it. I'm sure for
So Justin, anything coming up in the future? You got anything big lined up, or what's
Yeah,
okay.
we are going to be performing in Vegas April 10th at the Palms Casino. The Gen X Takeover. If you're in Vegas, get tickets to that. We'll be in St. Louis 2 weeks after that at the Factory Theater. We're almost sold out on that, so that's
Wow.
incredible. The Palms is a personal check mark on my life. Going to a big Vegas casino, that'll be pretty sick. And learning a new golf swing, bro. I'm you see how much I golf. I literally said yes to a golf instructor who's changing my whole swing, starting over from scratch because I just couldn't get any better. And
Did you hire Tiger's golf instructor?
no, because his first piece of advice was to get a Lincoln and drive at 70 miles an hour down a curvy road, and I was like,
I knew
mm,
there would be a joke in there.
I
That's
know.
why I asked it.
Buick. It was a Buick. Shit. Never mind. Anyway, I screwed that up. But no, I love golf so much because it's that's a sport that keeps me really really humble. You can't really
Yeah.
ever get good at it. Just like comedy. The day you think you do good, the next day it's coming for you. So, you know,
Well, Justin, man, I really appreciate you
yeah.
joining me today. We're
This
like an
was so
hour
much
and
fun.
40 minutes into this.
Yeah.
I messaged Justin, I think yesterday, and I said, hey, if I can pull you away from the golf course, because we've been talking about this for a while.
Yeah.
But after I did the news girl, I was like, man, I would like to get Justin up here real quick after I did the news girl.
Yeah, bud.
Which
Well,
she
that's the
she
way
was
my
awesome.
scheduling works. I'm not very good at scheduling, so I was like, "Oh, it's today! Holy shit! I'm getting 2 hours of window. Boom!" I'm so thankful. I appreciate it, man. It's so much
but
fun.
but yeah, thank you. I can't thank you enough.
Oh,
I love
no
your
problem.
content. You're really funny. You do great impressions, and I hope you all the success, man.
Thank you,
I'm a
buddy. I
fan.
will see you. I will see you in my FYP in a few moments. So it's such an honor,
Thanks,
bud.
buddy.
Thanks to all your fans. Appreciate you guys.
Have a great afternoon, man.